All right, y'all. We got a super, super special episode today, but I want to challenge the group to make sure they stay around to the very, very end because Miss Heather has got some exciting news post recording to share with us. So stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss it.
You'll be disappointed.
This is the Lean Builders Hoots on the Ground podcast with absolutely, positively no bullshito. Join us as we dig into exactly what lean construction is and how we can use these concepts and strategies in the field. This podcast will be different as we journey to job sites and mine the minds of lean builders, all in effort to pass forward building knowledge from those who have put their time in to learn a better way. Because that's just what lean builders do.
What's up, y'all? Adam Hoots here, the lean builder. Hoots on the ground with no coming to you today with Miss Heather Ormonde. Did I get that right, Miss Heather?
You got it right, Adam.
Nice. I'm super excited to get you on the podcast today and let the world know a little bit more about how awesome you are, because I genuinely believe that. And yes, let's start by just telling the world who you are, Miss Heather.
Okay. My name's Heather Ormonde. I live in Oklahoma City, born and raised. I'm a mom of 7-year-old girls. They will be 7 next month. So yes, that's right, twins.
I know a thing or two about twin girls. All right.
I like to joke and say that my passion for lean never stops. So I took the waste out of 2 pregnancies because that's not value add. And it's like Groundhog Day when you have one and then one's out of diapers and the next one's starting in. Nope, we're going to do this one time instead of batch.
I absolutely love it, and I agree with you. You may or may not know this about me, but I have 16-year-old twin girls.
Yes.
Woo. So anyway, sorry to interrupt, but twin girls are like that. You just melted my heart. Oh my goodness, the little babies.
Seeing the connection that they have and the relationship is just absolutely amazing. I've been working in the design and construction industry since 2007. So for the last 16 years, I've started with my bachelor's of interior design on the design side. And then 2008, when everything took a screeching halt, I took a step back and tried to assess, is this the path I want to continue down? And went back, decided I would go back and get my master's in construction management. While I was working on that, when I first started taking the construction classes, it was, where has this been? I really felt I belonged and I really enjoyed the classes and stuff. But I had an opportunity to learn more about lean while I was working on that and got my Lean Six Sigma green belt. Very quickly, just immediately was inspired by the philosophy and the principles and was like, they need to come teach this to the entire College of Architecture because everybody needs to hear this message and start to really learn these tools. And that's really where my lean journey started, was in 2010.
And where were you going to school at?
At University of Oklahoma.
Okay, gotcha. And they teach lean in the Sooners.
That's right. There is my green belt, my Six Sigma I got from the engineering department. There is a professor that's been teaching it, yellow, green, and black belt. And then there is a professor, Samik Ghosh, who is at the College of Architecture at OU, that has been teaching for construction science lean for at least 5 years or so.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
I think he only teaches for the construction department, unfortunately, and I don't think many of the architecture or design students are aware of the opportunity.
And what was his name again, you said?
Samik Ghosh.
Oh, perfect. Any chance you could introduce? You could
Absolutely.
do an introduction?
Absolutely. He's actually working on getting his black belt.
Nice, very cool. Sorry, that's twice now I've interrupted you.
No,
please,
it's fine.
Please, who else are you, Miss Heather?
A lover of travel and adventure. I've once been described as an onion. If you keep asking, there's just more layers and layers. Let's see. I used to play roller derby a lot in Oklahoma.
That's like where you're roller skating in a circle and like knocking other people out. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I was just a really fast one trying to not be knocked out and score points. Yeah.
I like it. That's so cool.
Went and played against some of the girls out in Amarillo too. Man, they were a little intimidating.
Yeah, I bet that sport is an intimidating sport.
It's fun. It's fun,
yeah.
especially when you're working 12-hour days in construction and you need something to take out some frustration and aggression. It's a good combination.
I bet it is. I could imagine that. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, man, you mentioned a lot of things, and I love it. You mentioned the feeling of belonging. What was that like, and how did that connect you to lean construction?
It seemed like it was how my mind worked. It just made things make sense. They say beer goggles. You put on waste. As soon as you start to know what waste is, I see it everywhere I go. And it's hard to not go to a drive-through or go somewhere and see either opportunities or appreciate Chick-fil-A's way they do lean. I guess that's what comes to mind. Additionally, more about me. In 2016, while I was pregnant with my girls, 15, when I was pregnant with my girls, I was the co-founder for the LCI chapter community of practice in Oklahoma. I have been the chair since 2015, July of 2015, and looking for volunteers or somebody to come and take my title away from me.
That's tough. I often see that in COPs. Those leaders become leaders for years and years because no one wants to step up because it's a tough job, right? I mean,
yeah.
Or what kind of things are you doing with the COP, or have you done over the last 5 to 10 years?
Honestly, the Lean Builder was our most successful event. We had 100 people. Sure. It was, yes. No event has come close to that. But we've also had some really great people like David Verbal come and speak and do the humble inquiry. And that was just absolutely inspiring to learn those tools. We're about to have Concrete 101 by a local concrete company give a training. We've presented to the local electrical union hall last planner system, and we are going to set up to do that. They have so many classes they have to take as part of their apprenticeship, and we're going to be one of those classes. So that's been exciting to be able to branch in and help support and teach that next generation of electricians to have some awareness of what the tools are.
I love your specific interest in trades, right? Because I think trade partners and trade organizations have a ton to benefit from lean, yet for some reason we always run around and try to scream at the general contractors like, you got to do this, but really if the job's not flowing, it certainly doesn't impact them as much as it does the trade partner who's not flowing. So I absolutely love that. Sorry, what else were you going to say?
We've had Felipe Engineer come and do Scrum, and we're working to get another Scrum class scheduled here in the next few months. But going back to what you said with the trade partners, I had this eye-opening experience myself. When I initially started in construction, I was surprised by the conditions on a project, the bathrooms, the fact that there's no place to have lunch and people are eating in their car in 100 and something degrees heat. It just, from my past work experience, it didn't seem like that was even allowable by the law. We're not providing them certain basic functions.
It's kind of humane in a little way. Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. And it just eventually I became numb to that. And I guess that's how we all are allowing it. There was a research study done, I was listening about recently, where these test subjects were testing to see if Americans could do horrible things and by following direction, like what happened during the Holocaust and stuff.
Yes.
And turns out if you're told to do something, push that button, and the person screaming finally stops screaming, they push the button.
Yeah, that was the shock, right? You push the button and the people get a shock, and then
they get a shock and they're screaming.
More intense and more intense.
Yeah. Yep. And then they stop screaming and the people did it.
Still push the button. Yes.
Yep. And maybe that is what has allowed these conditions in our industry. I like to think that it's got to be something to that extent where it's just how it was done and it just hasn't been brought to enough attention that it's not okay. But then it's also how do we speak to and treat our trade partners, and just that trust but verify, right, mentality that we have. Oh, I don't know that they're going to actually do what they say. I can't keep my touch plan unlocked because those trade partners, after the meeting ends, they might change it. That doesn't sound very lean. How can we have this mentality of we're on a team and we're supposed to trust each other, but we don't trust them enough to use the tool, the collaborative tool that we're saying is going to work? So when I went to the owner side, I was speaking to and talking to a GC the way I had been trained to speak and talk to trade partners. But I guess the GC was not used to owners speaking to them that way. I hired you to do the job. You're the professional. You go do the job. Probably they're not used to owners having as much construction firsthand knowledge. So I was asking and treating them the same way that I'd spoken to any trade partner. And he pushed back and I feel like you don't trust me. What have I done to make you not trust me? And it was just humbling maybe to realize, wow, that's how I've spoken to trade partners for the last 5 to 10 years. And they probably feel that same way, but nobody's willing to push against the boss to say, I deserve better. And it really made me do some thinking and change how I approach people and how I approach situations, because we can't be successful if we're not working as a team. And if you don't utilize the knowledge of everyone in the room, you're wasting so much potential. And if they don't feel that they're in a space where they can speak up and talk, it's hard.
What an amazing, like an awakening experience almost. And so what is the main difference between the way you treated the subcontractors, I'll even use that word, versus how you treat trade partners today? What's the difference there?
I guess the biggest difference is trying to get to know them more, try to build a relationship, try to understand, especially when you're doing Gemba walks. That Gemba walk is about what are their frustrations, what is slowing them down, what would they love to change if they had the power to make their work better. And it's build relationships is the biggest piece. I felt like before there was this, no, you have to keep it professional, right? You have to keep it a professional relationship. You don't get to know them. Billy Bean talks about that in Moneyball. Oh, I don't ride with the players. I don't get to know them. It's easier to cut them if you don't build relationships.
That's wild. So you're taking the inverse of that. Yes. I love that.
Yep.
And so, at some point in over the course of history, the words "be professional" meant leave your relationships at home, don't trust anybody. And so, how do you go about approaching that from a different mindset?
I am trying to learn from the number one life lesson that my grandfather always told me, which is, so this is a golden rule marble. Let's see
Yep,
here.
I can see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Around the band, it says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
The golden rule.
And the golden rule. At 91, just a few months before he passed, we were playing a game, and the question was, what is your most important life lesson? And his response, he pulls out his golden rule marble out of his pocket and says, the golden rule. Actually, he joked and says, it's a good thing I haven't lost my marbles. At 91, yes, that's right. And then he said, the golden rule. And if we just can approach everybody that way, and I can't think of the concept or the name of where we give ourselves the benefit of the doubt, what our intentions were, but we automatically assign other people's intentions as a moral failing or a character flaw. And so being aware of that and cognizant that we're all prone to doing that. So how can we stop and just ask, what made you do it that way? When we're having a phase plan and the trade partner says 3 weeks, and we say, there's no way it's going to take 3 weeks. That's not being respectful. It's, tell me more about what are you including in that 3 weeks? What's happening? What work is going on? What are your biggest constraints? Tell me, man, 3 weeks, that sounds like it's going to be really challenging. Oh, you're including this? I wasn't even thinking that needed to be included in that time frame. How about let's break that out, and now what would be just this piece? And being aligned on what it means to be dried-in, or whatever that piece may be, because it's something different for every single person. And we often don't think about how many languages are being spoken in that one room.
Yeah, that's powerful too. Never chalk up to malice what can be attributed to ignorance. And so oftentimes we're like always try, that person doesn't like me, or they're blaming, like they're using this or doing this intentionally. And another person's totally oblivious and innocent and has no idea what you're even talking about. You just happen to be the victim of whatever outcome has been happening. And I love where you're going. Trust is a big factor there. And the story from your grandfather, that was pretty amazing, by the way. I may have heard that a time before. Trying to understand what, do unto people as you'd have them do unto you. That takes some questioning, right? That takes some understanding about yourself to understand how do you want people to treat you, and then being able to pull that out and apply that elsewhere. In construction, we have systems that are working against us from a trust perspective. We've got, you mentioned it earlier, even as far as like my short-term look ahead plan, I don't try, like I'm going to put it on lockdown so nobody can move things. Like that has been ingrained in us as construction workers. How do we take a different approach to that? How do we turn around and say, enough is enough? I'm going to start trusting my work. It just seems like that is a system that keeps repeating itself. Yeah. And so where's the first place where we stand up and say, enough is enough? How do we do that as an industry?
It starts at the very beginning. And it starts with the contract and how are we buying out the projects? And if it's hard bid and lowest price, we're automatically divide and conquer and out for ourselves. So I think we've got to start there. But from I've honestly have not had the opportunity to be on an IPD project. It's definitely on that list of aspirations, but just not there yet.
I don't think a lot of people have to be
No.
quite honest with you. There's the IPD light concept.
Yeah.
I think that's what most of us have experienced, which is any other contract, but with an IPD approach.
I have been on a design build project that was just so different. And I've been involved with multiple design build projects, but this one particular team that really focused on design build done right, the owner he was honest, and there was not a lot of filter, but he's going to tell you where he's at and where he stands and what's working and what needs to change. But the owner requested that we have a 2-hour after action review. And that after action review included the architect, a lot of different entities from the owner side, trade partners were involved in that after action review that I had the opportunity to facilitate. And let me say, I was like, what universe have I gotten into? Because this is not construction. There was not a single finger pointing. It was just constructive. This worked really well. And hey, we struggled here. Let's get to the root of that. What are we going to change and do differently next time? And maybe that's where it's a place to start, is at the end of a project, let's come and learn PDCA, what worked and what didn't. But you can't blame the people. You've got to blame the system and look at the system. I think that's a big place. Starting with, from a project standpoint, is at the very beginning, regardless of the contract, with some trust. Be intentional, introduce each other, build some relationships. What type of, hey, let's bring all the trades together. What's your preferred method of communication? How do you communicate? Is it, how many people are Spanish speaking? How can we provide that content in Spanish so that we're not asking them contractually to do something which honestly wouldn't even be held up in a court of law if that's not in their native language. But just please don't call. Some people, I want a phone call. Some people say, I don't want to be interrupted, and send me an email or a text. But gets me onto my communication piece, where I feel like since email was introduced, the intent was more of this form of communication if you couldn't catch somebody by phone or text. But now it seems like I'm going to send an email and I'm going to expect a response immediately. It seems like our industry expects that we all have our notifications turned on and our email is open, and we are just sitting there waiting for that next email to come in to be able to respond to somebody. And how is that respectful?
I'll tell you one thing from my perspective, and I have done my best to condition people not to do that to me, because it takes me a week, sometimes 2 weeks, to respond to emails. I have 2 times during a week that I am very intentional about email and making that happen. And so people know, if you want to get a hold of Hoots, don't email him, because you probably will never hear a response again. But you're right. I do know a lot of people in our industry who also live by email. And as soon as that notification, and I hope this happens, because as soon as you were saying all that, I got like an email like, dong. And so it was like perfect timing too. I'm hoping that comes through in the recording. But there's people out there who are like immediate response. And as soon as you get this done, call me, or something, like the most random things. And so it's not respectful, but there is a line where you have to balance between how you like to be communicated with how other people like to be communicated to. And you used the phrase earlier, levels of communication. What does that feel like from your perspective?
Like identifying the importance and the need, and is this urgent? And if it's urgent, let's pick up a phone. And I know I've actually searched what is current business best practice around response times and expectations, and there's not a lot. out there that I've found, but it seemed like maybe that's something that should be talked about is if you need a response by end of day, the expectation is pick up the phone and call the person. If you're maybe you don't need it right now, but it's urgent, send a text message. Hey, we need to, call me when you're available or whatever that might be. Because a lot of people don't like to get voicemails and they're sorry, voicemail box is full or whatever that might be. But then I've searched into this, looked into this a lot, and then thought about putting, if you need me within this time frame, call. And if it's this time frame or this urgency, text. Or if you don't need it within the next, like you say, I like 2 week standpoint, next 72 hours, email. And I almost put that on my calendar or my email response title block at the bottom with all that stuff that nobody ever reads, but just felt that it would not be positively received, which is, I'm thinking about it now, I should have taken that step and said, I'm trying to be an effective communicator about expectations, and I think that should always be respected.
Yeah, as you're talking, I'm getting the Eisenhower matrix in my head, and it's like the importance and urgent quadrant, right?
Yeah.
And then phone calls are the firefighting, text messages are like the lean build, like planning, and then the third one was delegation, where maybe that's just email, and fourth is I don't really need to know that, so don't communicate that to me.
Yeah.
The other thing that's coming into my head is a nice blog post from Miss Heather Ormonde that's like for the lean builder or whatever else that explains the levels of communication.
I like it.
We did a levels of delegation. Keon wrote a blog called the levels of delegation.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember, but it was 1 through 5. I can't remember if 1 was the most extreme or not, but one side of the coin was like, hey, I'm going to delegate this task to you 100%. It's all yours. The other side of the coin was like, I'm going to delegate this task to you, but then I'm going to follow up and make sure you did your task. And there's levels of delegation in between all that. And we need all of those levels.
We do.
And I feel something similar with communication and it's like modes of communication or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But I would love to challenge you to
Challenge
write a blog.
accepted.
Nice.
Challenge accepted. Usually I'm that person that if I don't know, I'm going to go research and I'm going to go find something. And usually if there's not something, I want to make it or I want to do. So I'm surprised that I wasn't automatically, then something needs to be built. It's missing.
Oh, I love it because that's the ultimate respect for people, right? And it's a two-way street. And when you're getting to know them well enough to see like how do they want to receive information, that can be really powerful to build trust within your relationships.
And people, 70% of communication is nonverbal. How often do emails or text messages, honestly, get misinterpreted and people walk away going, man, I felt yelled at, or I'm in trouble, when a phone conversation would have really minimized that misinterpretation.
Yeah, context is really hard to get in writing versus I can raise my voice or I can laugh or I can do a lot, or my hands or like the way my face looks, right? You can do a lot of different things and make you feel some type of way just by the actions that are being taken in place too.
Yep. And I think the one communication I didn't speak about is daily huddles. That should be right up there even before a phone call, because if you are bringing the team together on a daily basis, that's where the communication happens, and that should be the primary.
And that's the best way to develop trust, right? Because that works on both trust. That works on the one is like the vulnerability trust, where I'm going to open up and just be me and real, and you're going to see my good days and my bad days. but it also builds that reliability trust where I know I can count on you to show up every single day at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m.,
Yep.
whatever that.
And what you're
time
saying, you actually do, and you're following through. Yep.
I love it. Tell me more about your lean journey. I know you started at the University of Oklahoma circa 2010-ish.
Yeah. Yep.
And where is that taking you? Where have you gone with that lean knowledge?
It has been quite a journey, and it has been something that just a goal that at times there have been so many hurdles and roadblocks that have gotten in the way, and I've just not allowed those to stop me down the path. I had one person tell me once, you will never do lean construction in this market. You will never find a full-time role doing lean construction in this market. Just put that aside and fill the need and be that is needed in our industry right now, because lean is not that. And it was only a few short years later that never would happen came to become a reality. It happened.
Amen.
When I got all energized, I started learning about LCI. I became a student member back in 2010 when I was working on my master's, and then jumped into the GC world and started trying to, hey, how can I pursue this? How can I share this knowledge? And it wasn't until I went to my first LCI Congress in San Francisco, and that was in 2014. And I've been to every LCI Congress except for 2016 when I had my twins.
Oh man, that's so cool.
And I've spoken, I've taught a CM Lean class at Congress. I've been involved with my team, that project I was telling you about, that design build project, my team, we spoke at Congress 2 years ago on sharing that experience. And it's just my tribe. It is really the community that I've found in our industry, where the like-minded people, my community. But it's been a challenging journey. Our industry is so resistant to change, and so not open to, you can't quantify the value often with lean that lean provides.
Yeah.
So it's hard to be willing to invest when it's hard, the numbers aren't real solid.
Yeah, because you don't, like, the things that lean prevents, you don't always show up. And so how do you quantify the problems that didn't happen? Right? Had you not made that investment in lean, you would have had a dozen other major problems, but because you discovered them early and you're able to work things out, you don't have those issues. So I have such a tough time explaining that to some people. But awesome. So I want to hear more about the roadblocks or hurdles that you've overcome along that journey, because it hasn't been easy for me trying to implement lean in the construction industry. So can you tell me more about the roadblocks and hurdles that you've experienced?
Let's see. One company I worked for, I was brought on to implement lean, but then that authority was never spoken outside of the walls of the room that I was in. And so here I am trying to help support and spread the message, and everybody's like, who is this and what are they doing? And there was never the top down, hey, this is what we're doing, we're committed to it. It was, yeah, we want to do this, we think so, but we're not on board.
That way.
And then I've seen how some companies do it really well in some industry, in some regions, and then in other regions, non-existent. It was interesting to see from an owner's perspective. And I've heard it so many times when I was with my community of practice in LCI, you've got to have an owner. An owner really makes a big impact. And we've been super fortunate that we've always had the opportunity to have an owner involved with our community of practice. But when I went to the owner's side, being able to work with several different GCs, and one took me around and showed me this ideal lean project of here's all the things that we do. And I was transparent and honest because I had a relationship with that person and said, didn't we buy that? Because I thought that's what we bought. And that is not what I'm seeing on my project. And it gave them the power because the owner was saying, give me what I paid for. And knowing that they weren't getting what they paid for, to give, as you're that person trying to implement lean on a project, you're at the mercy of the leadership supporting it. And if the superintendent isn't bought in and doesn't see the value, it's so challenging to try and provide value, effective value. It's so much energy, and you often seem like you're spinning your wheels. Seeing that, trying to come in and help teams and have a phase plan, but then the superintendent wants nothing to do with it. And then that phase plan just dying right there. And that gives people that bad taste of, yeah, lean, we spent like an entire day moving Post-its around, and then nothing ever happened from it. Or you've got that team that didn't come prepared, and it's so evident, and then you're wasting trades time. But regardless of how shoulda, coulda, whatever those shoulda, couldas, getting the trades in a room, introducing them to each other, letting them start to build relationships and have that name to that company, that's never a bad thing. And all of a sudden, instead of them showing up in 6 weeks to the project and never looking at the drawings, they showed up at the phase plan and had never looked at the drawings, but now they're actually getting into them and looking at it finally.
Anyways, you actually just made me realize like a very important. So let me just say this. I had 3 pool plan meetings in this past week, in the last 2 days, actually. And one of them did not go so hot. I did try to take a step back and let the project team lead it, but we didn't get any documentation out of the meeting. But what we did get out of the meeting was the site work and electrical contractors spent 2 hours together, learning their scopes of work, talking about what has to happen first, second, third, because there's layers to this site work out here. And so you have me reframing what I consider was a success this week. I think it was a success because the trade partners got to know one another. They got to understand each other's scopes. How fast can they move? How many people are they going to have on job site? And I think that is a victory. And so thank you for that, Heather.
Yeah.
It's not all about making the commitments or putting Post-its on the wall. It really is about the relationships and those tough conversations. The other thought that you provoked within my head is how easy it is to chalk it up to that lean stuff sucks, because we go and we create this nice pool plan, but then the first date slips, and then it's like everything else doesn't really work. Like the sequence is good, but we've got to push it, right? Or we've got to refigure out a way to resequence or reorganize to get us there. I guess what the realization that I'm stumbling into as I talk here is that it is easy to chalk it up to that lean stuff sucks because it's planning. And when we don't hit or execute the first part of the plan, everything else gets wonky. And then that looks like the pool plan's not good. When in reality, it's no, we did the plan. You just have to execute and then we get it done. But too often we don't have that ability to execute or finish as we go.
And that execute, we had a lean coffee last month and that was brought up. And I told them that I need this by this time frame. I sent them an email and they didn't do it. Guess what? That's not a reliable promise.
Back to our levels of communication.
Yes,
right?
that is a pipe dream. I want this. But did you ever get a commitment back from them saying, yes, I can do that? If you haven't gotten that commitment back from them, then cross your fingers, flip a coin. It's not going to happen. And then you've already set these expectations that are completely unachievable. You've got to, are we speaking the same language? Are we aligned? Is this realistic? And there's got to be the space to push back and say, that's not realistic. Let's come up, okay, what's the plan B? What are we going to do?
Yeah, you can either find out now in the planning phase, or you can wait till you show up on site and find out that it just didn't happen. Right?
Yeah.
And we as leaders have to create those environments where people feel safe enough to speak up and that nothing is going to retaliate against them.
And I've gotten feedback from trade partners saying, I could never tell a GC, no, that's not attainable. And until we can change that perspective, until trade partners can feel like they have the right to say no, but I see it on the GC side too. I see we're not willing to tell an owner no. We're going to do whatever it takes.
Yes.
We're going to promise everything that they need. It's just this, that's what has to stop, is saying no, saying, you know what, to do that, to meet that goal, I'm going to have to run my guys into the ground to the point of breaking and or risk their safety. And I'm not willing to do that.
How do you create that environment where you work?
You've got to lead by example. You've got to push back. I reach out and say, I don't know that I can achieve that. It's so hard because human nature we underestimate our time all the time, whether it's intentional or not. Most of it's probably not even intentional. Oh yeah, I think I can get that done. I guess the way to do that is to break it down. Do your own phase plan for that task and how much time does it take, and measuring that. A big piece of that is, a great tool for that is Scrum, where you're finding out what your production rate is. I think that's one of the values that our trade community provides, is they know their production rates. That is, a lot of times they know exactly how much they can install. We just don't want to hear it or won't accept it. But from a GC work standpoint, how long does it take to review those submittals? We don't know. How long does it take to, what's that turnaround process? For RFIs, it's all over the place. I think using a tool like Scrum would be a first place to start.
I agree 100%. The transparency and that's a beautiful answer. Thank you for that. Another thing that I have become aware of, painfully aware of in the last month or so, is that you have discovered your why.
Yes.
I would love you to take the audience down maybe how you did that, and maybe at the end unveil to us what is your why and how you're going to attack me. Okay.
So if you haven't seen the podcast or the TED Talk, Simon Sinek, Find Your Why. He really talks about, you want to start with why. A lot of companies start with how or what, but to be impactful, to get people's attention, why does it matter to them? What is the value that you're going to provide? What is the change that's going to happen? I have a wonderful peer mentor, I would say, Mark Harris, who is a lean black belt most of his career was in the military and doing lean, and we worked together at OU Medicine on the owner's side of the hospital, and had the opportunity to work with him. You sit down and you start thinking about all these things that do this chronological history of your entire life from childhood, what happened that had an impact on you, and how did it change you? How did you feel? It's really digging deep and a little scary, and trying to think about, I don't know, I feel like I had a pretty good childhood. I don't know, nothing comes to mind. And then when you sit in that and think about it, it's interesting what you start to see these themes start to emerge. And once you've done some soul searching on your own and documented some things, there's two ways to go about finding your why. You can either work with somebody that he really recommends, about a 2-hour session, or you can, and I did a little of both, just because I wanted to make sure that I was going down the right path. The other method is reach out to your best friends, those people that are your ride or die, that you could call at 3 a.m. and just ask them, why are we friends? But use the humble inquiry and just keep digging until you find those, but really, why are we friends? What is it about me that makes you want me in your life? And there will be a theme from those people that emerges. As I'm developing this and I'm working with Mark, we're going, and he throws something out there about problem solving, and I was like, our society views problem solving too much as a negative. And I really wanted to center my why more on the positive side, because we all focus on the negatives and what it takes 8 positive things to be heard to overcome 1 negative comment. Once I heard it, it says, you'll know if you're willing to have it tattooed or something. I've not done that yet,
No,
but
it's coming.
Maybe. But immediately after we came up with it, he starts telling me the story of this art class he's taking, and I immediately processed my why and thought, wow, yeah, that answers it. That this makes sense. And I know that doesn't make sense to you guys. But so my why is to help and inspire people so that they feel empowered to achieve positive change. Again, to help and inspire people so that they feel inspired to achieve positive change. Because that's really what I feel the value I can provide. What I enjoyed most working with project teams as a lean manager was coaching those coaches, hearing their challenges and saying, hey, there's somebody, you're not alone in this struggle. Somebody just went through that, and making those connections and saying, you know what, I've been down that road. You're doing the right things. Just keep going. You can do this.
Trust the process.
Yep. So the example was that he was taking this art class, and he was saying how it was laid out. You've got there's classes you can watch, and there's tips, and you just do this and you can become this painter. And I thought, man, I would love to take the process that they used to teach that class. And one of the things I did while I was in college was learn to do glass blowing. Or what is that thing, that knowledge that I have, that I could develop a process to teach others that were interested in doing something that I had a skill to share. And so I see that is exactly what that is inspiring other people.
I love that. You're such an interesting person, from glass blowing to roller derby to a lean construction guy. Like you, I love that. What an awesome conversation. Go ahead.
And I almost said it how nonverbal, when I was in college, I went and worked at Disney, and the official way I can say it is I was really good friends with Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse, and even when you can't be seen, you're still smiling when you're taking a picture, because that comes through.
I'm sure it does.
In your actions, and it comes through even when you can't see your face.
Well, even when you're on the phone, I know if that other person is smiling or happy or excited or if they're having a rough day, or it does. It comes through even when you can't see somebody's face. That's 100% accurate.
Yeah.
You are an interesting person, and just so that I can make the commitment online,
I
real
know.
life,
So
I am. Yeah, go ahead.
So now that I've told you my why, Adam, we talked about a month ago, and I shared my why with you. And so I challenge you. We've talked about it a few times. I would love to help you facilitate and find your why, because if you haven't, it can be that North Star in where am I going with my career, and am I going down the right path?
Yeah, I love it. I'm up for the challenge. So challenge accepted, as I heard you say earlier. And I have some suspicions of my why, right? And doing things like this and discovering awesome people like you. I feel like a lot of what you said in this podcast reminded me a lot of myself. So I'm probably going to end somewhere with you and the inspiring people to be better people. But I absolutely accept that challenge. I am a little nervous about digging into some of my history because it hasn't been all roses. It's not like I experienced abuse and things like that, but it has certainly been a wild ride. So I look forward to that. And yes, so thank you. Thank you for the challenge, and it is accepted.
Okay.
How do you want to end this, Gal? Whatever you want. You have the mic. Give us a little mic drop as we go out and make the world a better place. What do you got?
Raise your hand. Ask for help. If you are struggling, if you want to find your why, if you are new to your lean journey and feel like every day you're making the wrong step, reach out to somebody. Adam's going to put my contact information. I am always available and would love to help anybody who's struggling or starting out on their lean journey that wants more support, from whether it's the design side, the construction side, the owner side. I would love to share the experiences I've lived through to help you relate to the challenges that you've got currently and help inspire that positive change that you are wanting to see in your career or in your life and not knowing what the next step is. Adam, I can't say enough how honored I am to be asked to speak and to be on the podcast. And I love the time, every time we get together, it's so rewarding. So thanks so much.
Of course, you're a baller. I can't believe I waited so long to ask you to get on the podcast. Thank you for accepting that. And thank you for your message. I think discovering the why just really encapsulated the whole conversation, the trust, the communication, and so thank you for being that and changing this industry. And I know whatever you choose to do next, you will be successful. And I'm here to support you 110%, Cal. So thank you.
Thank you.
And that's just what lean builders do.
Bye.
That's the episode, folks. And we promised you at the beginning that if you stayed around, Miss Heather was going to share some super exciting and brand new, hot off the press news with the Lean Builder Nation. With that, Miss Heather, it is all yours, gal.
Well, Adam, I am so honored and excited to be able to break this news and share this with you and our community. I have finally decided to take the leap. And what I mean by that is do something I have thought about, planned, researched, creatively developed, and worked on for the better part of a decade. That is to join, as some people call it, the dark side of consulting and starting out on my own. I have started a company, Pursue Perfection Consulting. And if you will, I pulled the ondon on my life to what are my priorities and what do I want to do and how can I make the biggest impact and see the change I want, be a part of the change I want to see. I worked on developing my why, which again is to help and inspire people so that they feel empowered to achieve positive change. And I feel like this is that next step to really go and be impactful and help people doing that. I chose Pursue Perfection Consulting because it really embodies who I am and how I operate. It can always be better. Part of that is maybe that perfectionism, which is maybe why it's taken me a while to get to this point. But how do we make it better for people? How do we improve things? There's always that better way. Lean is a journey. And so with Pursue Perfection, we've got the Kaizen staircase, that small incremental changes. And it's sometimes perfection can be looked at in a negative way, but we always want to try to reach, to attain that. For those of you who are starting out on your lean journey or struggling on your lean journey, I want to be here to help. Reach out. We've got this amazing community and there's so much information, but how do you take that learning and put it into practice? And how do you share and learn from others and feel that you're not alone? As we rise each other up, we will better this industry and be able to make some changes to improve the lives of everybody. You can find me on LinkedIn to see what's going on, or go to my website at pursueperfectionco.com, as Adam has put right down here on the screen. I look forward to hearing about your lean journey and how we can continuously improve and pursue perfection together.
That's amazing.
Thanks.
I'm super ecstatic for you. And I can tell you anything you need, you let me know. And I'm sure the lean community feels the exact same way. We are full of givers and you fit perfectly into that equation. And so definitely looking forward to helping you out as much as we possibly can. And good for you. You deserve this. And yeah, go get it, gal.
It's been an exciting, scary journey, but everything that's worth it is, right?
100% agree.
Well, Adam, thanks so much for having me on, and I look forward to seeing what you're doing next and continuing our discussions.